Hello everyone and welcome back to day 10 of our F125 Hot Lap and Setup series. Yes, today we return here to Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. This circuit, one of my favourites on the F1 calendar. It's always been fantastic to drive until the last couple of F1 games. They made a few tweaks and changes to it that I don't think worked inside from about F122 all the way through to F124, but I think this place is a big improvement inside F125. Just the way kind of the curbs and traction work kind of make this track make sense again, which I, personally am very, very happy with. But as always, for those of you that are new to this series, what we do is we go through, I explain the circuit, I talk you through your braking references and the gears you want to be using around the lap. Then I show you a setup guide that is designed for races, not qualifying. The amount of comments I still get on that on every single video and kind of short that I do. This is for race setups, not qualifying setups. If you want a qualifying setup, just go on time trial. It's not going to help you score points in a race, however. So as always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below. Of course, if you want to look at the track guide, if you just want the setup, or you just want the hot lap at the end of the video. A massive thank you to everybody for their continued support on this series. Please do make sure you get yourself subscribed and leave a like if these videos are helping you out. I do provide these setups for free. The amount of paid setups I see now on the F1 games is ever so slightly scary. But without further ado then, let's head onto the track. Well, Montreal then is often described as a bit of a go-kart circuit by the Formula 1 drivers. It is all long straights and chicanes, pretty much, around this venue then. But as we make our way out of the final corner, you're going to be all the way up in 8th gear on the run towards turn 1. A lot of drivers like to kind of go wide in to give themselves a slightly straighter run in towards that first corner. I don't tend to bother. I hug the inside line just because it saves you a little bit of distance in towards that first turn. You want to be looking for this kind of white bit of tarmac runoff, if you will. In qualifying, you want to be braking right towards the end of it. In race trim, you want to be braking just after you go past the start, ideally at this white line just in front of us there. Keep the car over on the right-hand side, but bring it all the way down into 3rd gear, ready for turn 1. Try to attack the curbing on the inside, and make sure you open up the line, ready for turn 2 there. I like to go down into 2nd gear, but I also kind of like to V off the corner a little bit. Don't hug the apex too tight early on, allow the car to drift a little bit wide, but then tuck in for the exit of the corner to give yourself the straightest run up the hill. Back up into 3rd gear there, be really, really careful. It is so easy to lose the back end as you try and get the power down off of that corner, and then we head up in towards turn 3. Easily one of the most difficult corners on the lap, of course. It's completely blind. It is an apex that slowly you will figure out where it is. I would aim to brake at about 70 metres. You're going to go from 6th gear down to 5th in qualifying trim, probably down to 4th in race trim, but try and again get the car as far over the curbing as you can without picking up a warning there. So as you can see, really try and get the car squared away. Through the next corner as well, again, try to take as much curb as you possibly can, but be very careful of the wall on the outside because it can really punish you if you make a mistake there. The amount of front wings I've lost on the exit of that corner is impossible to count. Hug the right-hand side as you make your way through turn 5, and then as you make your way down in towards turn 6, you want to get the car straight. Braking just after the 100-metre board on the right-hand side there, but just before kind of this tarmac runoff, as you can see. I don't tend to use it just because it's a little bit risky, but again, try to get the car over the curbing. 3rd gear through this 2nd chicane, and then you can short shift up to 4 through the 2nd part. I avoid that 2nd curb just because you find you can get on the grass and then nice and steady on the throttle. Avoid that curb on the outside, it will only cost you speed, and then you open up the DRS out onto one of the many back straights that this circuit has to offer. All the way up into 7th gear, I like to hug the inside line inside F125. As you get though down the end of this straight, I like to aim. There's a little wall, it's horrible, that just sticks out under the bridge here. So I like to try and aim to go just past that wall by the time I'm on the brakes. You want to be braking just as you go into this gantry, one of the more obvious markers inside F125. Bring the car down 3 gears, and again, really try to attack these next 2 curves as well. The first one you can get away with a lot. The second one you have to be a little bit more careful, and again, be very careful on the exit. You can really upset the balance of the car especially if you dip the rear wheel off onto the grass, it's just going to go spinning on you, and it's not fun. Again, I've done that so many times in previous F1 games. Back up through the gears, though, you're going to be approaching 7th gear as we make our way in towards the biggest braking zone of the lap. Bring the car back over to the left-hand side, and again, you want to be aiming just after this little bit of tarmac runoff, as you can see on the side of the circuit there. Brake just before the 100-meter board, bringing the car all the way down from 7th gear down to 2nd. Again, I like to try and go for a slightly later apex, but make sure you hug the car in nice and tight. You don't need to get right up towards the wall on the exit. I prefer to get the car straightened up for that curbing that kind of juts back in slightly. So short shift up the 3rd gear. You can use that curb a little bit, but it doesn't make much difference. And then you're on the long run back down in towards the final corner of the lap. Open up the DRS, take the line of least resistance there, but try and get the car lined up ready for this final turn. Easily, I think, the other most difficult corner alongside turn 3. Under the gantry, you want to be eyeing up the 100-meter board there. From 8th gear, you want to get all the way down in towards 4th. Make sure you're getting then the car rotated in nice and tidy. You can take a lot of curb through the first part of the chicane. The F1 game lets you get away with it, as proven there. But the second part is completely unforgiving. Avoid the wall on the outside there. You can get over the curbs, but sometimes you'll find it costs you a bit of speed as well. Open up the DRS, and that is going to be a lap then of the Montreal circuit. Like I said, it is one of the most brutal to learn. It is really unforgiving. I know a lot of people struggle around this place, but once you get it hooked up, it is an absolute gem of a Formula 1 circuit as well, and I really do love this place. Like I said, it's so satisfying when you get a lap hooked up round here. But yeah, let's head though back to the garage, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. Well, taking a look then at our leaderboard, I think, yeah, 253rd there. Actually very happy with the lap time we've done, especially when you factor in this is kind of a more race-ready setup than obviously what these guys are using. I've been reading your comments. Some of you guys have been saying that some of the setups recently have been quite slippery. I have been trying to change that around a little bit, but on circuits like Imola, another one is actually Montreal as well, the grip actually on the circuit is quite low naturally, so you will find this is going to be a track where the back end steps out quite a lot on you. 31.25 for wing angle. Again, if you're in racing, I would potentially run this slightly lower, as it's going to allow you to obviously make moves down the straight. So if you want a really low kind of wing angle, I would go down to 26.22. But yeah, 25.31 works for me around here. 80-30 on the differential, a fairly standard diff setting for F125. We're always running quite a locked on-throttle diff and quite an unlocked off-throttle differential. Again, where this circuit has a lot of quite twisty traction zones, you want obviously that on-throttle diff to be fairly locked to stop the rear wheels kind of spinning uncontrollably. Minus 3.4, minus 1.9, 0.01 and 0.12 for the front camber and the camber and the toe angles. Again, you can run minimum around here. It does work quite well, but it will make the car a little bit more slippery. So I've tried to compromise the setup just a little bit to help you guys out. 36.8 for the front and rear suspension settings, 6 and 17 for the anti-roll bars there. So again, fairly meta stuff. A very firm front suspension, very soft rear, and then the opposite for the anti-roll bars. 23.50 for the ride height. Again, there are some quite lethal curbs. I'm thinking the end of Sector 2, that chicane can be absolutely horrible. But generally the curbs around here aren't too bad inside F125. 55 brake pressure. I really found, actually, from doing races around this venue, that I run a slightly more front brake pressure than I normally do inside F125. I don't know what it is, but the rears tend to lock up quite a lot here. So whatever kind of front brake pressure bias you normally use, I would up it by 1 or 2%, and hopefully it'll help you out a little bit more around this circuit. And last but not least, absolute maximum front tyre pressures, but 23 PSI on the rears. This circuit is an absolute tyre killer inside F125. Also, though, the pit lane is very short, so the two-stop is very viable around this circuit. If you want to one-stop it, I would say go to the end of lap 15 on mediums and then 20 laps on the hards. Or if you're trying to two-stop, go 10, 10, 15, and you're going to be able to push a lot throughout the race as well there. So it can really make a big difference. But in my testing, I found the one and the two-stop, there is next to nothing between them inside F125. Again, though, I'm sure when we get into more league racing, you're going to find a lot of people are going to try the one-stop, so maybe the two-stop's the way to go to stretch it out for yourself as well there. But hopefully this setup helps you guys out. Like I said, I tried to make a few tweaks and changes to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Get yourself subscribed if you're new. A massive thank you to everybody for their continued support on this series. And yeah, we'll be back tomorrow then, ready for the Austrian Grand Prix.